it forces you. You have no other choice but to speak that language. You know, whether it's good or bad, that's a different matter. But you need to learn the language. For example, before I left for the UK, I could barely spell my own name.
Now let's talk business.
We were the first people to bring Nestle into Uzbekistan. Nestle water, the milk, all the products of Nestle was coming through us. We were the distributors. The biggest part of Bonn is its production. We are the biggest and the only producer of natural chocolate in Uzbekistan.
Behzod, the very first question that we usually ask from all of our guests is, imagine you are in the auditory where most of the people do not know you. How do you usually introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, I introduce myself as a... Is it working? Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So I introduce myself as a founder and the CEO of Bonn Coffee Shops. It is part of the group which is called ABNMB Group. That where my family, or where my parents have set up the company. Company was set up in 1991. We were one of the first private companies in Uzbekistan. So I introduced myself as a young, ambitious businessman who came back from the UK. I used to live 15 years in the UK. I came back to improve the younger population of Uzbekistan. That's my number one aim. That number one motivation for returning back home, really, after living so many years abroad in the UK.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to find out what was the main motivation for you to come back, like how you felt those times yourself, like your inner self. But we'll come to that later. But the very first thing that I would like to know is your childhood. So do you remember how you were like when you were a kid?
Sure, yeah, of course I remember. Especially being in this location brings back many fond memories. I was born and raised right here, just behind this building, where I lived up until the age of 6, I believe, and then I moved back to another location in Murabad. But I went to school number 90 here. I was born and raised here in an ordinary family of a young nuclear scientist. My father's a nuclear scientist back in the SSSR. And then he became a businessman when they were closing down the factories. I was always energetic. I love to talk to people, and up to this date, I do that. Really, that's predominantly my job. To talk to my team members, to talk to our guests, to talk to you guys as well, which is the most important part. I was maybe sometimes too energetic. You know, I was a little bit hyper child. I was moving around just everywhere. But with experience, with the responsibility on your shoulder, I became a little bit more calm, a little bit more conscious of what others, what my decisions can make on others. So it just, I think, you know, as a child, I would say I was energetic. I still haven't lost that part, but I changed the direction a little bit. You know, I use my energy wisely now. Yeah.
Did you know that you're gonna become a businessman?
Yes, I
At that
did.
time.
Yeah.
So this was your solo goal to become a businessman, and so you knew that you're gonna become a businessman, and you were not considering any other professions.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly that will be a business, but I always loved to trade things. You know, when I was a child, I used to buy things in bulk. So I used to go to bazaar and order through my friends different things. I used to buy quite a lot at a cheap price, and then I used to sell to my friends for a little bit more with a margin on it. So that happened. Well, I started becoming, I guess, the kind of the mentality of businessman while studying at school, while studying this 90 school. Yeah, and then it evolved.
All right. You mentioned you lived in London for 15 years. Do you still visit the country?
Yes, I do. I still visit, not so often anymore. But since I moved back here permanently, I haven't visited that much. I used to visit due to business reasons because I used to have a restaurant and a coffee shop there as well. But we'll go on to that. You know, what happened to that? I think it's one of the questions later on. Yeah.
So the first time you got into to UK, so was this a education purposes?
Yep, yeah, it was education purposes. So after finishing this school here, and then I moved to school number 110. I studied there for a little bit, and then my brother went to the UK to study, and then I followed him as well because we knew that the education system here wasn't strong enough. Well, my parents thought that it wasn't strong enough to provide a solid background into our, solid foundations to our future. So we decided to move to the UK. We went to a boarding school. It's a school where you live inside the school, you study. It's a closed school, so you can't go outside of it without a permission of your teachers or without permission of your parents. My parents were here in Uzbekistan, but myself and my brother were there in the UK. Yeah.
You lived there for 15 years. Was it hard to live there alone without your family? Sure, your brother was next to you, but still.
Well, I lived. My brother and I we lived alone for I think 2 years, and then my parents moved there as well, and then my sister moved to school there. So all of us started living there. So at the beginning, yes, of course, it was hard. Being away from your family is never easy at any age, but especially when you are that young and when you are dependent on them every day. Even for food, even for cleaning your clothes, things like this. So, but you become used to it. There's a lot of crying every day, and I have to admit, I used to cry every day, missing my parents, missing my family members, missing Uzbekistan as well. Missing the food, of course, all the delicious food which we have. But that's life. You get used to it.
We all heard that you're gonna have and experience that living alone thing on yourself first just to become independent. We all know that, but what kind of differences you noticed when you started living with your brother alone?
Living alone teaches you quite a lot of things. Yes, certainly it teaches you how to be more independent because you are responsible for your own food, you are responsible for your own cleaning, you're responsible for everything, for even you paying your bills, like your internet bill, your different bills. So it teaches you to be more independent and to be a little bit more kind of a good planner. You need to plan your days, you need to plan your weeks. I guess in that sense, that's the biggest advantage of it. Whereas if you live with your parents, they will do everything, all those plannings and all those thinkings for you. So all you have to do is just turn up and then enjoy. Whereas there, you need to plan in order to enjoy. So it's a unique experience, but it's an experience which I recommend to everyone if you have the possibility, of course. Not here, but abroad. A lot of my employees come to ask me, saying, "Look, I have a child. He wants to go to Korea. He has won a grant to live there, to study there." I say, just let them go. Let them try for themselves. You cannot, as a parent who hasn't been abroad, you cannot tell them what to do because you don't know what it's like. Whereas and that's why they come to me for an advice, and I just say, look, I honestly say, if you can financially afford this, let him go. Let him go. Let him enjoy. If it fails, he'll come back within a couple of weeks. Just you need to let your. I guess I don't have any children yet, but I guess you need to let them know. You let them go for a little bit in order for them to test the different waters. Because otherwise they will become too dependent on their parents, and God forbid, if something happens to the parents, then you're almost without options. You're not ready for the big changes in life.
As a person who spent 15 years of his life in UK, in a foreign country, and still counting, why do you think most of the youngsters really want so bad to study in a foreign country, to live there and to stay there? Why do you think this is?
Well, it's first of all, it's an escape from your comfort zone. Comfort zone in many senses. In Uzbekistan, you know everything. Your parents will do everything for you. Your friends will do everything for you. Your family will do everything for you. Whereas abroad, you are all alone. In most cases, but of course, there are cases where they have family members living there. Yeah, just I guess it's to feel a little bit more independent. I guess that's the number one priority, to feel out of comfort zone to in order to improve. And obviously, it comes with other benefits such as speaking practices. For example, before I left for the UK, I could barely spell my own name. That was back in 2004. My father asks me when I was flying to the UK. My father asked me, "Okay, well, spell your name to me." And then I'm just like, I was shocked, and I knew how to speak a little bit, but I didn't. It just sometimes when you have that pressure, you kind of lose it, So, and I had this kind of trauma. I couldn't really spell my own name, but after a while, you get used to it, and then being in the surroundings of English-speaking people, in my case, it teaches you a lot because it forces you. You have no other choice but to speak that language. Whether it's good or bad, that's a different matter. But you need to learn the language. And I guess it depends on the level, the age of the people leaving it. One of the biggest factors we're seeing is job opportunities, job and career opportunities. So yeah, that's another. But I guess that's for the older generation.
Now let's talk business.
Let's do it.
All right. So at the beginning of our discussion, you mentioned that it's not a single business, but a group.
Yep.
Within which there are lots of different businesses, right? Could you please elaborate on that and tell us a little bit more details about this group?
Sure. Well, I'll start from the beginning of the company. So, as I said, it was established in 1991 by my parents. We were the first people to bring Nestle into Uzbekistan. Nestle water, the milk, all the products of Nestle was coming through us. We were the distributors. We were also the distributors of Procter & Gamble. That's not many of you might have heard of that brand. They have multiple brands. They have Peril for the cleaning. They have a lot of things. It's what we call is FMCG products, fast-moving consumer good products, which means everything you would find in a supermarket. Almost simple way of putting it is like that. So we were distributors of that, and then in 2004, where the previous government decided to make it harder to trade in currency. So that's why we decided to move into a restaurant. We opened the first Italian restaurant on Murabad Avenue. Now it's called Il Perfetto, but that was in 2004. And then we moved on, and then when we started, as I said, when we started living in the UK, we spotted, a lot of coffee shops, making coffee from beans, not kind of trivadnom. Yeah. So we thought, okay, well, let's try the coffee in Uzbekistan, and we were the first people to bring coffee, the beans, into Uzbekistan, and to make coffee from those. So the Born was established in 2000 and at the end of 2009. Technically speaking. So yeah, up to this date, we have 16 coffee shops. 16. One of them is in Andijan. The rest are in Tashkent. In 3 years, or in 2 years now, we should have 50 coffee shops. So we are expanding very, very quickly. Within the holding, we have an Italian pizzeria called Bella Napoli. I'm not sure if you heard. There's one in Magic City. There's one in Shoto Rustaveli. Then we have restaurants called Afsona, which is a contemporary Uzbek cuisine. And then not many people know this, but the biggest part of Bon is its production. We are the biggest and the only producer of natural chocolate in Uzbekistan. No one else makes natural chocolate actually in Central Asia. We're the only ones making. And then you find our chocolates everywhere, like duty free. uh, in the airplanes, in the business classes, and everywhere like that. We have a ice cream factory where we only make Italian. Everything is Italian, including the packaging, including the ingredients, the machinery, and everything like that. Then we have the bakery, one of the most advanced bakeries in Uzbekistan, where we make croissants and things like this. What else? So we have and then pastry, which is cakes, dessert, так далее. But that's a slow. But also Bon has its own farm. You know, all the meat, most of the meat, not all, sorry, most of the meat you'll eat in Bon is our own cows. Is we have a big land where we have around 100 cows right now, where we grow them, and then we use them for ourselves because we want to control the supply chain. I would say we are with the only vertically integrated hospitality company in Uzbekistan. And we have new additions to the company as well. Some of you might have tasted it already. Fretta, just there.
Yeah.
Fretta, that's ours as well. That's a little brother of Bon. Where Bon is
Twice it's a little cheaper.
it's much cheaper.
Yeah.
It's much cheaper.
It's much cheaper. Yeah, it's not even.
No, it's much cheaper than Bon. We're testing it here for the first time, so I'd love to get feedback if you have afterwards, because we want to improve every single business at all times. We don't stop learning. As a company, we make a lot of mistakes. Please don't think the company is just don't make a mistake. We make millions and millions of mistakes every day. Yeah, like yesterday, I had a big complaint from my staff that we made a big mistake, and he's right. We listen and we say, look, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, as a company, we have made a mistake as a management. So anything we can learn is better for everyone. But that's about it in terms of businesses at the moment.
Very interesting, and seems like they're very complex to manage all of this at the same time. So you, as a person, you try. How do you allocate your time to manage all of these businesses? Like, so you're only one. So is there anybody else helping you? Like,
yeah, no, it's a family business, still a family business. I'm responsible for the retail, so I'm responsible for coffee shops, the restaurants. I'm the face of the company. I'm the responsible one for the front, so for all the customers and all those parties. I have a brother who's responsible for finance, IT, and human resources, HR. Then my father, who's responsible for legal side of the business, and then other businesses as well, which is he manages directly. We don't get involved. It's not easy, but I have a great team, and we work as a group. And then how I manage all these different projects is each day I have dedicated for each project. For example, for Bon, my current days are Tuesdays and Fridays. Monday is my restaurants day. I only deal with the restaurants. So if someone comes ask me for advice or help in terms of Bon, I say, look, come tomorrow. I don't. You need to focus. Without focus, it's quite hard to manage anything. Yet alone just multiple businesses. So that's how I structure my day, my days. But if we go deeper into each day, then mornings are for my meetings for Piti Minutki, which is like 5-minute calls with my team members. Which get straight on to the point quickly. They tell me and say, yes, I'm happy. No, I'm not happy. Change this, change that. And then after lunch, it's mainly a time for self-improvement and for myself. So I answer emails, I answer a few calls, but I mainly think strategically. I try to think strategically. It doesn't always work, but I always try.
Is there people underneath you, like basically, who are able to make a decision on behalf of you while you're absent? You just mentioned, for example, the Tuesdays and Fridays are Bon days, and other days are restaurant days, right? So imagine that it's not a Tuesday, it's not a Friday, it's Monday, and there is a little issue, not that serious, that needs your involvement, but still, is there people within this each group that can make a decision?
Yep, there is. Certainly, there are people who can make decisions. Obviously, beneath me, how we structure the company is I'm the CEO. Beneath me, there is the general managers for each direction of business. So, for example, for Bond, we have a general manager called Abdullah. Then for restaurants, we have Firuz. For Fretta, we have Mikhail. So beneath me, I have different project managers, and they manage the day-to-day activities. Obviously, if there are serious questions, then they come and ask me, or we discuss as a team. We don't. I never make sole decisions. We always consult and say, okay, what do you think? What do I think? What's the right way? Um so yeah, I mean, it's they have the right up until certain level of decision making, and after it becomes a kind of consultation with myself. But that's kind of internal communication which we've set out with our HR team.
So your all of your businesses are striving seriously. Like if you look from the side perspective, so I love Bon. I do not spend a day without having a coffee from Fretta. Uh, that should mean that you should have an amazing team with whom you're working. So are there any criteria while you are choosing a people or hiring a person to your team?
We look at multiple criteria, but the most important one for myself is the willingness to learn. You know, we always look for people with like burning eyes. We're like, okay, I want to improve not just your business but myself as well. You know, we want people to be ambitious and to have this kind of drive to learn. That's the most important. If someone has the willingness to learn and not the willingness but the attitude to learn, I can teach them, or we can teach them anything really. But if they're already without the willingness to learn, then I can try years and years and years, but it'll never work. You know, it all depends on the person, how much they want to improve, how much they want to work as a team. Team working is another factor which we take into account. We like to hire team players because I'm a team player myself. You know, we've achieved all this not just because of myself. You know, because we have worked as a team. So team working is a second most important factor, but the most important one is the willingness to learn. And I see a lot of companies are paying attention to this right now in Uzbekistan.
Agree. Thank you. You at the beginning mentioned also that as a business you make lots of mistakes as well. So could you please, if it's okay for you, tell one of the mistakes or any difficulties that came on your way while leading your business? So when at the time when you really struggled to solve a problem.
Sure. There are a lot of them, to be honest. A lot, as I said, a lot of mistakes and a lot of different sizes of mistakes. I would say one of the biggest ones we have made recently is price changes. I would say we have changed the price without looking at additional factors. So I would say that's one of them, and then that has upset quite a lot of people. So I guess we didn't check the market when we were changing the price last year in October. That's when it was. October, when we put up when we didn't do market research hard enough. We're looking at certain competitors or certain businesses, and then we thought, okay, that's the market expectations, you know, what the market is willing to pay, but we didn't analyze their service, we didn't analyze their displays, so we were analyzing almost the wrong people,
Yeah.
wrong competitors, and then we forgot to analyze the right businesses which we compete with.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the biggest ones we have made recently.
How did you learn to analyze your competitors? Like, where did this come from? So, is it you who had the initiative first, or is it guys who had a business administration background and then were like, let's do this analysis. I know this factors and that thing.
Well, it's both. We have an experienced marketing team who advises us on a lot of things. They look at a lot of things, and I'm involved as well. I like to not just look in terms of numbers. I like to go to that place and experience what other customers would experience. That's why I don't do a lot of PR in terms of about who I am. It's because I want to I want to remain as anonymous as possible. Because I want to get the real experience as all the others would have, and including within our own company as well. We don't really show our faces a lot because we want to go into, for example, Bon or Fretta just like a normal customer, and we want to be served as everyone else would be served. Because obviously when they know your face, they have kind of special tactics. They want to get your attention. They want to look after you. All this, but we're not interested. We want to feel every business from the customer's perspective. Yeah.
I think you get recognized too often, do you?
I try not to. Try not to.
All right. All right. Now, if we talk about basically we had a discussion regarding how your business works, but basically the people and students who are sitting in front of you, those are mostly teenagers and people who are at the moment are very curious to open up their first startup and businesses. And do you have any advices like on what specific factors or areas they should focus first?
Sure. Number one thing is don't rush. I speak to so many young people, and they always seem to rush. They always seem to get, okay, I want to be making that much profit, but profits, let me break the bad news to you, it doesn't come straight away. It comes after years and years of hard work. So when you're planning to open your own business, don't expect profits to be coming in from the day one. That never happens, and I'm pretty sure it will never happen to anyone, unless I guess it's a unique business. But in our sphere, it's always difficult. So don't rush, but learn the market in detail. Learn your competitors if there are competitors. Go and see them in person. You know, I see so many people analyzing the businesses from their computer screens or from phone screens. It doesn't work like that. You know, that's part of their offering, but the biggest offering could be, for example, there's how the manager speaks to their customers. Obviously, you cannot tell that through the computer screen or telephone screen. So that's why you need to go there, you need to analyze it, you need to see it for yourself with your eyes. That's number one. Number two is plan. You know, I see so many, almost every month I speak to one person who reaches out to me on Instagram, a young, you know, it just have to be any age, any background, but I just say, okay, let's meet for a coffee, we can discuss your business project, and then I ask questions, and I see so many times that they haven't thought about basics of the business plan. Writing a business plan is the key before you are opening your own business. You know, it doesn't have to be pages and pages. Most people think it has to be like 10 pages, 20 pages. No, it doesn't have to be. Just, for example, when I did my business plan for my restaurant in London, it was just one page of business plan. I just wrote it down, all the key important, all the key parts, and then I showed it to my team. I said, look, guys, this is our restaurant in one paper. I hope that's enough for you to know what we want to do. And they said, they've read it through. They said, okay, I have some questions here. Can you expand? So I explained in detail, but you know, just goes on to show that it doesn't have to be pages. You know, just write on one paper, minimum one paper, and then just share with people. Ask for their opinion. You can always ask for other people's opinion to give you feedback, because you might have missed out on key parts. For example, like recently, I think last conversation I had with a guy who wants to open a what's it called, sasisk в тесте. He wants to open a sasisk в тесте coffee shop. I forgot what it was. And then we were discussing the pricing and everything like that. And I said, okay, well, okay, good price. You've learned the market. That's good. But have you factored in your wastage? Because obviously there are wastages in food. Is you working with fresh product, you can't keep it forever. You most likely keep it for 2 days only if you are keeping a good condition, but most likely in most cases is just 1 day. And what we call wastage or spisania, that's almost, it can reach up to 10% of your daily sales revenue. So factor in, think about everything, and if you can't think of everything, most likely you won't be able to. Ask someone else. It doesn't have to be from this sphere, sphere in question, but it could be other spheres. Maybe they can guide you from the different angles. So my advice is learn the market, write a business plan, and speak to others to get their opinion.
Right. Thank you. Now, if we talk a little about finance, so what do you think? How much is enough for a person to be happy?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess it varies. It varies. Making how people feel happy is not 100% related to money. That's the believer I am. For example, I have a different philosophy. How I know I'm happy is in business, in life, in anything, is how many people I make happy every day. Whether that's our customers, or my family members, or just on the street. I like to just walk around, and if I see elderly people, I just say assalamu alaikum, and they're like, oh, okay, well, this guy, they don't really hear these things anymore, but I just made that person's a little bit happier in life. For example, street cleaners. I like to walk around Tashkent by foot at the weekends. During the day it's quite hard because I have to rush through the meetings across the city. So at the weekends I like to just walk around as much as possible, and be thankful for what others are doing. Not just for me, not just for you, but for everyone. Really, it's obviously, for example, if we take the street cleaners in this hot weather, for example, I can barely stay outside for 1 minute in this hot weather, but imagine they've been there for 8 hours, 10 hours. So just every little thing we can do to make other people happy, and of course that makes you happy in exchange. It comes back to you, because when that person gives you a smile and says, "Oh, walaikum assalam," that's a kind of, for me, that's the most important aspect. So, in order to answer your question, how much money do you need to make to be happy? I don't know. It just depends.
But still, like there is a certain amount of money which adds up on your comfort.
Yeah.
So more than that is, like, as you say, loses its meaning. Less than that, so you struggle a little bit. What's the golden average? What do you think?
Golden average is, I guess, in each case is different. For me it could be different. For you it could be different. For everyone, or all of us could be different. But as long as you have a happy family, that's number one.
Yeah.
That cannot buy you. No money can buy you that. Millions, trillions. It cannot. If you have a unhappy family, forget it. So that's number one priority. You need to keep your family happy. Of course, how do you keep your family happy? I guess there are multiple ways. I guess one of the things that you could do is bring some food home. That's number one factor. How much does that take? I guess you need to break it down, what your priorities are and how much it costs and everything. So it could be it could range, I don't know, from a monthly from 3 million to 50 million. It's hard to say, and each case is different. I cannot answer the question on behalf of everyone. Luckily, if I analyze my case, luckily I have a family, I have a home, I have a car, I have a business. Most importantly, I make within the company we have almost 1,000 people working. So every day I make 1,000 people within our, but they have their own families as well, which is probably adds up to, I don't know, 6,000 people we are dealing with. We are affecting their lives. So It just depends. It just depends. I cannot unfortunately answer that question. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, to come back to the previous question, how to set up a business.
Yeah.
Let me give you a pure example of one of our mistakes. When we're opening our restaurant in the UK, we had invested $1.5 million $1.5 million into opening one restaurant and one coffee shop. Yeah, but we made investments without business plan. Could you believe it? So we invested $1.5 million into these projects without a business plan. And guess what happened? After 4 years, we closed it down. After 4 years, coffee shop, we sold it, and the restaurant I started managing myself. So that just shows how important it is, and we still make mistakes. And another key example of making a mistake is with our ice cream factory. We opened a beautiful factory, Italian technology, Italian everything, without a business plan. We had invested $500,000 into this, and up on this date, it still loses money. It still loses around, I don't know, a monthly basis, $5,000 every month. It loses just like that. You know, it just shows that how important it is to write a business plan, not just in your mind, because we all have on our minds, but to write it down on a piece of paper. You know, it doesn't have to be ideal paper. It doesn't have to be your company logo. Just write down on any piece of paper. Yeah.
Hozirgi momentda O'zbekiston va UK rynokini solishtirsak agar o'rtacha O'zbekistonda qanaqa kapital kerak startup masalan biznes boshlash uchun? O'rtacha masalan UK da qancha kerak deb o'ylaysiz?
Tak, O'zbekistonda hozir endi mana bunaqa biznes ochilib ketyapti. Uzum market, masalan, ularga katta kapital kerak emas. Ularga masalan, menimcha eng выгодныйroq shunaqa bo'lib qolyapti hozir. Masalan, boshqa joydan tovar olib kelib, katta ob'yemda olib, ustiga ozgina qo'yib Uzum marketga qo'yish. Chunki Uzum market ko'p qulaychiliklar yaratyapti. Так что bilmadim, endi unga может $300, $400 kerak bo'lsa kerak. Angliyada endi ishga qarab o'tda ham shunaqa qilsa bo'ladi, Uzum marketga o'xshab. Menimcha o'tda minimum $5,000 ketsa kerak. Chunki o'tda mahsulot uchun emas, ko'proq kompaniya ochish rasxodlari kattaroq, yuridik rasxodlari kattaroq. Masalan, kompaniya ochayotganda yuristga borib, ofitsialni hammasini qilish kerak. Yurist o'tda juda qimmat turadi. Dokumentlar yig'ish kerak. O'tda har xil mana narsalar qo'shilib где-то 5,000 plusga aylanib qolsa kerak.
Tushunarli. Boshida va suhbatimiz davomida siz aytib o'tdingiz, Londonda ham oilaviy bizneslaringiz bor. Bu White Onion, adashmasam shunaqami? Bir tanishim siz bilan ishlagan, o'sha inson bilan hozir aytolmayman kimligini gaplashgan edim. Qaysidir moment White Onionni yopib turib, faqatgina O'zbekistonning rynkida fokusироваться qilish niyatingiz bo'lgan ekan. Va nima sizni mana shu ideyadan qaytardi? Hozir ham White Onion ishlayapti, shunaqami?
White Onion bo'yicha gapirib o'tsak, White Onion bu restoran Angliyada, London shahrida. Aytganimdek, mana biz 1,5 million pul tikib, ikkita biznesga ikkalasi ham yaxshi yurmayapti. Minusga kirib ketyapti har kuni, kачество tushib ketyapti. O'sha biz coffee shopimizni sotib olgan edik. White Onionni o'sha paytda mana adam yonimga kelib aytgan edilar, qara, sen universitet yaqinida bitirasan o'sha yerda. Hozir men bu biznesni yo senga beraman, upravleniyaga, o'zing просто noldan o'zing hamma narsani o'zing hal qilib ko'rgin deb shans beraymi senga, yoki men hozir uni 1 tiyinga sotib yuboraman. Chunki o'tda kompaniya dolgi katta bo'lgani uchun $1 o'tda kompaniya sotib olsa bo'ladi. Shunaqa kattaroq, endi katta investitsiyalarni. Chunki dolgi katta, uni qarzi katta unaqa kompaniyalarning. Bizani qarzi o'zimizga qarz edi, o'zimizning O'zbekiston korxonamizga qarz edi bu Angliya korxonamiz. Shuning uchun o'shanda necha yosh edim? 20 yosh edim. Universitet 20-21 edim. universitet tugatyotgandim, keyin mayli, давайте попробовать ko'raylik. O'sha payt o'zim oilam yo'q edi. Riskli kamroq edi boshqalarga. Shuning uchun qo'limdan kelsa o'xshab ketadi, qo'limdan kelmasa bo'ldi, sotib yuboramiz deb kelishgan edik. Yo'q, xudoga shukr, qo'limdan keldi. Juda успешный proyekt bo'ldi. Oyiga, kechasi oyiga emas, yiliga biz qancha yutqizayotgandik? 100 ming, kechasi yiliga 100 ming yutqizayotgan edik. Biz ma'lumotni oldim, keyin olganimdan keyin o'sha yiliga 780 ming dollarlik anaqaga chiqdi. Foydaga chiqdi biznes. Keyin oldingi yil mana 2022-yil kechasi mana uni orqa qaytib kelsak, 18-yil men butunlay O'zbekistonga ko'chib kelganman. O'zbekistonda keyin qolib ketganman. White'ni 2015-yildan beri ishlardi. 15, keyin 3 yil o'sha yerda o'zim boshqarganman, keyin boshqa odamni qo'yib 18-yil O'zbekistonga qaytib kelganman butunlay. O'zbekistondan Angliyani kontrol qilardim bizneslar bilan. Keyin hamma zo'r ketyotdi, komandamiz zo'r ishlayotdi, juda yaxshi odamlar bizda ishlardi. Keyin men urush boshlangandan keyin energetika narxlari juda ko'tarilib ketdi va Angliya Yevrosoyuzdan ham chiqib ketgan edi. O'sha jo'ski chiqib ketish boshlayotdi. Juda qiyin, ishchilar topish qiyinlashyotdi. Keyin o'zimga qaror qildim, bu Angliyada ishim meni o'zimga ta'sir qilyapti, chunki qiynalyapman kontrol qilishga rasxodlarimizni va oilaviy. O'sha paytda o'sha o'ylangan edim. Qarasam O'zbekistonda ishimni 6 da bitiraman deb, keyin kechqurun 10, keyin o'sha 4 soat yana 10 gacha Angliya bilan ishlayotgandim. Menyular yozib, qarab chiqib, прибыльность qarasam keyin o'sha oilamda ham sal anaqa nima deydi, xafagarchilik bo'lyapti. Nimaga oila bilan bo'lmayapsiz shunaqa deb, keyin qaror qildimki 22-yil Angliyada biznesimizni sotdik. Bitta juda yaxshi taklif chiqib qoluvdi. Juda yaxshi. Shu taklif chiqqandan keyin bo'ldi. Mana Xudo menga yetkazdi shunaqa yaxshi taklifni. Bo'ldi, hozir men mashta kesmasam biznesni, keyin qiynalaman yana deb qaror qildim, sotib yubordik. Aprel bosh oyida, kechasi 2021 ekan bu, 21-yil kechasi 21 bu. 22 emas. Shu sotib yubordik. Bir marta ham ikkilanmayman. Juda xursandman sotib yuborganim uchun. Nimaga desanglar, butunlay vaqtimni O'zbekiston uchun ishlata olaman va oilam uchun ishlata olaman. Bu juda katta narsa. Eng qimmatbaho narsa hayotimizda nima desanglar, ko'p odam so'raydi, bu vaqt. Agar vaqt hamma narsani hal qilib bera oladi. Yaxshi kunlarni ham, yomon kunlarni ham vaqt to'g'ri ishlatsa, bu eng qimmat narsa deb men hisoblayman vaqtni. White'ning bo'yicha shu, uni sotib yubordik. Juda xursandmiz sotib yuborganimiz uchun. Конечно, ishchilarimiz zo'r komandam meni tarqalib ketdi. Haligacha aloqadamiz. Har oyda bir marta telefon qilib turishadi. Behzod aka, orqaga keling, iltimos, biznes ochish ishotadi. Yo'q, men sal O'zbekistonga kelinglar, shotda bizneslar ko'payib ketyapti, uspet qila olmayapman deb aytaman. Конечно, ularning oilalari bor, oilaviy bu yoqqa ko'chib kelisha olmaydi, yangi davlat, tilni bilmaydi. Shuning uchun qiynalishyapti. Juda katta желанияsi bor yana biza bilan ishlashga, xodimlarimizni.
Самое основное, Behzod aka, menimcha bu narsa bilan work and life balance ga erishgan bo'lsangiz, self satisfaction bo'lsa, menimcha haqiqatan ham to'g'ri решение qilgan bo'lsangiz kerak. Hozir esa bir kichik bizni aktivityimiz bor edi. Bir savol o'sha aktivityni boshlashdan oldin. Croissant bu ko'pchilik bir kofe shoplarda bor narsa-da. В том числе Bondda ham croissant bor. Bonni croissantni ko'rsangiz, boshqa kofe shoplarning croissantlardan ajrata olasizmi yo'q?
100% ajrata olaman.
Da?
100%.
Все, отлично.
Kechasi men 100% boshqalarnikini ham qarab, qanaqa saryo ishlatgan, qanaqa metod deymiz biza qanchalik uni buklagan hammasini shu biza shundoq olib kelsangiz shundoq ustidan qarayman ichini bitta kesaman o'rtasidan sразу kelib chiqadi.
Как раз таки bo'lmasam bizda 4 ta har xil заведениyadan 4 ta croissant bor. O'shalarni bittasi faqat bondan. Sizni vazifangiz ana shu bonni croissantni topish. Agar qo'lingizdan kelsa, boshqa masalan kompetitorlaringizni croissantni bila olsangiz, ana shuni ham aytib berish. Agar qo'lingizdan kelsa, конечно. Всё, отлично. Bo'lmasa bizga 1 minut vaqt bersangiz. Nima deb o'ylaysiz? Qaysi biri mana shu yerda bonniki?
Bu yerda bittami yoki ikkitami bonniki?
Bitta.
Ha, bitta donami?
Bu yerda bittasi faqat bon.
Tak. Точно mana shu ikkalasida bittasi.
Aha.
100%. Menimcha даже ikkita ham degan bo'lardim bu yerda. Chunki bu ham bizanikiga o'xshab ketyapti. No, bu точно bizaniki.
Aha.
Nima deb o'ylayman agar hozir bilmadim. Ошибка qilmagan bo'lsam.
Xohlasangiz o'rtasini kesib ko'ramiz.
Ну, давайте.
Bizda nojik bor.
Давайте.
Malika?
Давайте.
Ого, какой большой нож.
Necha? O'rtasini bundoq kesing. Da. Точно ikkita emasmi bondiki?
Yo'q. Yostiqqa nima deysiz?
Tak, men uchun bu yerda ikkalasi bonikiga o'xshabyapti, no. Hozir qiyinroq qilib qo'ydinglar buni.
Хорошо.
Hozir qiynab qo'ydinglar.
Nima deb o'ylaysiz? Mana bu qolgan ikkitasini tanyapsizmi yo'q?
Точно bonniki emas bular.
Точно bonniki emas.
Bu Safiya yoki K Club.
Aha.
Mana bunisi особенно. Chunki Safiya bilan K Club botirishadi.
Aha.
Ustidan.
Aha.
Bilish uchun. Keyin bu yerda saryo ishlatilgan. Ustidan sloykasidan bilinib turibdi. Endi bu yerda buni aytish qiyin, to'g'risini aytsam, chunki bu qiynalyapman. Bunaqa texnika ishlatish hozir juda populyarni emas. Bilmadim, bu bo'yicha menimcha buni qiynalyapman kimligini aytish.
Хорошо. Значит, bu Safiya yoki K Club. Buni bilmadingiz? Может быть, siz umuman bilmagan kofe shopdir balki.
Bo'lishi mumkin.
Bu ikkalasi bon. Ikkalasini bon deysiz.
Menimcha shunaqa.
Хорошо. Keling, bitta orqasida qarab ko'ramiz. Значит, mana bu croissant bu Bradley'dan.
Yaxshi. Safiya bizga kerak.
Haqiqatan Safiya. Safiya.
Yaxshi ko'rsak, aytib qo'y, bunaqa croissant yaxshi yomoni yo'q, hammasi har xil.
Tak. Mana buni bon dedingiz, buni ham bon dedingiz. Bu haqiqatan ham bon.
Aha.
Okay. Eng oxirgisi. Bu ham haqiqatan bon.
Well, my name is Behzod. As you said, every business maker or startup business you should write your plan. If you know, I have some brilliant plans to make a business, but I don't have money or investors. Where to find them? My first question.
Sure. Okay. So financing your business plan. That's the question. Financing. There are investors out there. I guess your first option is to contact your family members. A lot of businesses in the UK start off by investment from their family members. Your family members are most likely to invest in you without any previous experience of yours. But as long as you show them that you know what the business is, you know how you want to approach the market, how you want to develop it, and etc. So you need to prove it to everyone. One of the, I guess, the easier or the fastest route is the go in and present it to your family members. Yeah, doesn't have, all the investments doesn't have to come from one person. You can approach multiple, and they all add little bit. Second thing is there are a lot of opportunities from local banks. As long as you have business plan. Yes, they require a lot of paperwork, which is the downside. I hope the government makes big improvements on that because that's discouraging quite a lot of people to take out investments or to ask for loans, and it's because there are too many hurdles, there are too many documents to provide, and etc. There are digital banks like TBC, like Anor Bank. You could approach them. They give you up until X amount, but that will be your personal loan from them, and then you can invest into your business. What else? There are a lot of public initiatives at the moment where they want to hear from young people, and they want, obviously, the most important thing you could do when you are developing or when you're looking for finance is to show yourself, show your project to everyone. The more people know, the more chances which you have. If you want to only keep it to yourself or to one or two people, that's it. You are limited to those one or two people. But if you show it to everyone, if you attend, I'm not sure if it happens here or not, if you attend these events where I'm not sure if they're happening in Uzbekistan, but I'm pretty sure they will. The hockey mat is quite good with that. Once you say, look, I have a business plan, I will need finance, where can I go? Probably they will tell you, okay, these are your options. So contact as many people as possible, including government organizations, because I'm pretty sure they will guide you. Or you can approach individual investors. Like, for example, you could write to me or to anyone, to Zafaraka, you can ask, okay, would you be willing to invest? But it all depends on our time, because we already have our time dedicated to big businesses already. So I'm not saying yours doesn't have a potential to be big. It could be, hopefully it will be, but at the moment, our time it's too valuable to invest into small projects.
3 aspects which is the best for new startup business.
3 aspects. Aspects in terms of what?
Community with customers or.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Number 1 aspect is learn who you want to sell to. Yeah. For example, what I do is for example, we have another business which we import quite a lot of ingredients into Uzbekistan. So what I do, I go to Karzink, I go to Macro, I just go around. I don't look at what's on the shelves or what's on the polka. Yeah, I look at what's on people's basket. For me, that's not important. How it looks all beautiful all the time. It looks beautiful, but what's the most important thing is what they're carrying in their basket. Yeah, on their teleshkas. When they go around, that's what you need to see. That's how I analyze the market. So that's how I understand my potential customers, because we import quite a lot. We import milk, we import different things, flour, etc. So that's how I go and see. Just go and see what they're doing. So that's number 1. Finance is very important. Just even if rough finance. What else? And then operational. If we divide the business into 4 different major departments, which is finance, marketing, operations, and I just mentioned it. I forgot what the 4th one was. Finance, operations, and HR, human resources, cadre. So just concentrate on all the ones except human resources. Yeah, because you don't need it at the moment. Because when you're starting up a business, most likely you're just 1 person or 2 people maximum. Yeah, so just concentrate on the other 3 aspects. of the business and try to get deep and write down everything. Yeah.
Assalomu alaykum, mani ismim Habibulloh. Men savolim shuki, misol uchun shu darajaga yetishingiz uchun, misol uchun biz ham shu darajaga yetishimiz uchun shunaqa katta firmalarda ishlab o'rganganimiz yaxshimi yoki o'zimiz ustimizda alohida ishlab shunaqa ko'tarilganimiz yaxshimi, shuni so'ramoqchi.
Juda yaxshi savol. Hozir men o'zimni bitta qarindoshimizga shu masalani yordamlashyapman, mentoring qilaman. Xuddi shu savol mendan so'radilar. Qarang, men nima tavsiya qilaman? Hozir уже O'zbekistonda juda yaxshi kompaniyalar ko'p. Juda yaxshi kompaniyalar ko'p va ko'payyapti kundan kunga. Meni tavsiyamki, bu kompaniyalarda juda yaxshi fundamentlar bor. Hammasida ham emas, ko'pida уже bor. Fundamentlar. Siz uni qayerdan bilasiz? Qanaqa fundamenti kuchliligini, qancha filiali bor? Masalan, Korzinkani olaylik. Korzinka juda ko'p. Nimaga ko'pki, ularning juda yaxshi fundament qurishgan o'zligisiga. Nimada o'sishyapti, kompaniyaliksi ham o'syapti. O'sish sababi shunki yaxshi komandalari bor, yaxshi biznes protsesslar yo'lga qo'yilgan. Tak shu bunaqa kompaniyalar ko'payyapti. Mana bizda bormiz, Safiya bor, Safiya ham juda zo'r. Men Safiyani hammaga maqtayman, qoyil qolish kerak. Juda zo'r biznes protsessni qurishgan, yaxshi oila, juda yaxshi ishlashadi. Tak shu bunaqa kompaniyalar ko'p. Meni tavsiyam bunaqa kompaniyada ishlab ko'ringlar. O'zingizlar xohlagan sohada, masalan, siz bilasizki, bu ishida bilmam, siz mashina sohasida ishlamoqchisiz. Men tavsiyam siz o'sha mashina sohasida hozirgi kompaniyada ishga kirib, o'sha yerda o'rganib, ichidan o'rganib, uni bir kunda o'rganmaysiz, kamida 3 oy, 6 oy kerak bo'ladi. Ishlab ko'rib, keyin bo'ldi, bu yerda o'rganib, keyingisiga boraman. Keyin u yerda o'rganib, undan keyin siz men bo'ldi, tayyorman, bildim degandan keyin undan keyin menimcha biznes boshlash kerak. Chunki bu nimaga olib keladi? Bu disiplinaga olib keladi. Hozir ko'p yoshlarni ko'raman, davay men o'zim biznesimni ochaman, ertaga уже pul qilishim kerak, unaqa ishlamaydi aytganimdek. Bu sohani birinchi o'zingiz xohlayotgan sohani ichidan bilib olish kerak. Mana masalan, men o'zim qanaqa qilib bu sohani ichidan bilaman? Chunki Angliyada o'qiyotganimda universitetda men shanba kunlarini bilasizlar, chet elliklar ko'p diskotekaga boradi, shunaqa narsalar qiladi. Men unaqa emas edim. Men restoranda idish-tovoq tozalab yurardim. Tozalab, shu mo'ykada turib, tozalab, keyin undan keyin ovqatga o'tib, ovqat qilishni o'rganib, keyin undan keyin barga o'tib, kofe qilishni o'rganib, shunaqa qilib ichidan chiqish kerak menimcha. Shuning uchun ham ko'p odam menga kelmasa, menda qanday problemalar bor desa, men уже bilaman-da, qaysi men уже etapdan o'tib bo'lganman. Sizga ham agar kompaniyangiz boshqarayotgan bo'lsangiz, xudo xolasa, sizga kelib ishchilarni so'raydi. Siz uni ichidan bilishingiz kerak. To'xtab tur, men bilmayman desangiz, bo'ldi, ularning yonida obro'yingiz tushadi. Shuning uchun iloj bor bo'lsa, ichidan maksimal ko'p korxonalarda, yaxshi korxonalarda o'rganib olib, yomon korxonada ishlash kerak emas, vaqtingiz ketadi, bo'ldi. O'tda ham ozgina agar ishlash shart bo'lsa yoki rinnek hali unchalik ko'p bo'lmasa, unda ichidan o'rganib chiqib, keyin hamma plus minuslarni yozib olib, undan keyin boshlashingiz kerak.
Hello, my name is Diaz. I think I have the most interesting question.
Sure.
How much do you earn per month from one branch?
From one branch?
Yeah, bond.
Okay. So one bond. Very good question. All of them are different. It ranges from $1,000 to $10,000 per month.
And what's the most highest pay amount? Which branch?
I guess I cannot. Obviously, we have a lot of branches, and to be honest, all of them are almost on the same level. But one of the best I guess I cannot say best performing because all of them are almost the same performing because we count the profit from each table which we have. Some of them are big, some of them are small shops, so we cannot. That's why we break it down into something which we can compare it against. because size obviously varies in this case. I guess, you know, if you want exact examples, then Chekhova, which is Россия гостиница, that's one of the most popular ones, but it doesn't mean it's the most profitable. Yeah, it's one of the most popular because it has most number of seats almost. Usman Nasser, Shota Rustaveli, that's also good. Yeah, all of them are different, but historic ones, or one of the first ones to open, are still one of the better performing ones. The reason is people have a connection with those branches. Like, you know, for example, they might have met their wife in this location, so they go back to celebrate. So, you know, we as Bonn, we don't just sell coffee. You know, people think we just sell coffee. No, we don't sell coffee. We sell experience. We sell atmosphere. We sell, to be specifically speaking, we sell French atmosphere, which is the most important. When you enter Bonn, you're entering France. You're not entering Uzbekistan. That when you open our doors, that's when Uzbekistan stops. Yeah, that is how we think. We think, okay, how do we show people what France is like when they are in Uzbekistan?
Good afternoon. Firstly, I want to thank you for having such a nice place to visit, because undoubtedly Bonn is one of my favorite places to visit. I like doing homeworks there, studying and meeting with my friends. So I've been always curious about one question. Like, all of the staffs there, especially male staffs, they give off such a French atmosphere. Like, literally all of them are so handsome, and I'm so curious, where do you find such kind of staff? Like, yeah,
Handsome people.
French people, yeah, like especially male staffs. Like,
Okay, handsome people. I guess that's a question for our HR team, but we have a complicated recruitment system. So we have, obviously, people send their resumes, then our first round of HR team analyzes it, then they pick the best ones or suitable ones for us. Then they go to the next stage where we invite them into our office. We do team building. There's a lot of there are people sitting, and we talk to them. We analyze different factors, but as I said, the most important one factor is how much they want to learn, the attitude to learn. That's one we see. There are ways you could tell this. So that's one of them. Yeah, the most important one. Yeah.
Behzod yana bir narsa, yoningizda, ro'parangizda ko'proq yosh qizlar, yosh bolalar, 14 yoshdan 17-18 yoshgacha ko'proq, bular endi o'zini professional yo'lini boshlashyapti, o'zini qidirishyapti. Mana shunday yoshlarga nima degan bo'lardingiz?
Juda yaxshi savol. Birinchi bo'lib, shoshilmanglar. Juda ko'p yoshlar shoshilib qolishyapti. Har xil savollar bilan. Birinchi bo'lib, endi men bu faqat biznes tarafidan aytib o'tish mumkin. Ko'p ko'raman, aytganimdek, mana shu biznes planlar butunlay yozilmagan, o'ylab chiqilmagan, boshqalardan so'ralmagan. Shoshilmasdan boshqalardan ham mana nimadir ham qilyapsizlarmi, boshqalardan ham sovet olinglar, so'rab ko'ringlar. Oila a'zolaringlardan, boshqalardan, o'rtoqlaringlardan nima deb o'ylaysan deb. Ikkinchisi, bu juda muhim, bu disiplina. Disiplina o'zbek tilida nima deydi bilmayman. Nima deysiz? Intizom. Shu, bu juda muhim narsa. Bu hayotda yoki biznesda men 100% ayta olaman, qanchalik uspешный bo'la olish faktordan bittasi. Top 3taga kiradi. Disiplina. Agar sizlarda hayotingizda, ishingizda disiplina bo'lsa, qaysi ma'noda disiplina? Mana sodda qilib aytganda, nechida turasizlar, ertalab nechida uyg'onasizlar, qancha vaqtli boshlasanglar, shuncha unumliroq kuninglar o'tadi. Hammamiz ko'rib turibmiz, kunlar shunaqa tez o'tib ketyapti. Даже uspet qila olmayapmiz. Mana haftadan boshladik, shu hafta tugayapti. Shunaqa juda tez o'tib ketyapti. Shuning uchun meni tavsiyamki, disiplinanglarni yaxshilanglar, vaqtliroq, bilmadim nechida turasizlar. Masalan, men o'zim soat 5 da turaman. 5 da turib, meni ish kunim 5 da boshlanadi. Iloj boricha vaqtliroq turib, mana masalan Steve Jobs hozir Tim Cook olsangiz 3:41dami, 42dami turadi. Bu nima demoqchimanki, bu hayotini unumliroq o'tkazishga harakat qilyapti va biz как biznesmen tarafidan biznesimizda ko'proq vaqt o'tkazaylik degan ma'noda. Sizlarda bu hali yoshsizlar, так что hali возможностьlar ko'p. Hozirdan mana shu disiplinalarni yaxshi bo'lsanglar, uverinmanki, solishtirsak kim hozir masalan 6 da turadi, kim 9 da turadi, u 10 yildan keyin razitsiylarni olsak, uverinmanki kim oxirroq tursa o'sha odam ko'proq успешныйroq bo'ladi. Uverinman bu narsalar. Так что iloji bor bo'lsa, hayotingizda уже disiplinani yaxshilab olinglar. O'sha aytganda voqlidan turib, keyin kuninglarni qanaqa o'tkazasizlar, qancha soat telefonda o'tkazasizlar, qancha soat o'zingizga vaqt ajratasizlar. Eng muhimi o'zingizga ham vaqt ajratinglar, iltimos. To'g'ri, hammamiz o'rtoqlarimiz ko'p, hammamiz ham birga masalan haqqidan borishni, kafega borishni, kofega borishni yoqtiramiz. No, o'zingizga minimum 2 soat vaqt kerak kuniga. Minimum 2 soat o'zingizlarni kitob o'qishgami yoki просто ideyalarni yozish uchun o'zingizlarni o'sha miyali narsalarni yozib qo'yish uchun, o'ylash uchun, даже o'ylash uchun vaqt kerak. Bilaman buni qiyin buni tushunish, no bitta yaxshi fikrlash uchun vaqt kerak bo'ladi. Menimcha shu 2 soat kunida o'zingizga vaqt o'tkazishingiz kerak. Hamma telefonlarni o'chirib qo'yib, xohlagan narsalarni olib, masalan, bir xil odamlar yozishni yaxshi ko'radi, bir xil odamlar просто o'ylashni yaxshi ko'radi. Kitob o'qishni yaxshi ko'radi. Так что kim nima xohlasanglar, просто 2 soat kunida faqat o'zingizlar uchun bo'ldi. Boshqalarni esingizdan chiqazinglar 2 soat uchun. Endi bilaman bu qiyin, ota-ona bunaqa narsani esidan chiqarish qiyin. No, iloji bo'lsa kamroq o'ylab, o'zingizlarni o'ylanglar. Keyin disiplina yana bittasi, bu nechida yotishinglar ham, bu ham ko'p narsani ayta olasizlar bu ishinglar bo'yicha. Yaxshi soat uxlash, yaxshi nima deydi? Boshqatdan energiyalarni tiklab olish bu juda muhim. Bunga ham ahamiyat qilinglar. Mashhur kitob bor, agar bilmoqchi bo'lsanglar, 5 AM Club degan, soat 5 da turadigan, ertalab 5 da turadigan kitob juda muhim. Va yana bitta, agar iloji bor bo'lsa, bitta kitob hammaga tavsiya qilaman. Ko'p o'zim kitob o'qimayman, to'g'risini aytaman. Bitta kitob o'qiganmanki, mana shu butunlay ishim, hayotimni o'zgartirib yuborgan bitta kitob bor. Bu How to Win Friends and Influence People degan narsa, kitob oti. Dale Carnegie. Qanaqa qilib o'rtoqlarni yutish va ularni ularni upravlять qilish desam bo'ladi, menimcha. Juda muhim kitob. O'qib ko'ringlar. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Juda muhim. Shuni tavsiya qilaman hammaga.